Go.
Hey, how are you? We haven't done late night from Willowdale for well over a year and a half. The last time we did a late night from Willowdale video was July 3rd of 2022 from Golden Park. And we were planning to do one last year on my birthday, but we ended up going out having dinner with my family, so that never happened. And I haven't been back to Golden Park in a long time. I want to correct that, obviously, because that's always a good place to do late night from Willowdale, because it's actually in Willowdale. Now we're from my new place, which is at St. Clair Avenue Road, at 99 Foxbar, and same in Midtown, just a 10-minute walk from where I used to live. And so Khalid said, "Oh, we got to do a late night from Willowdale video," and so just to maybe let people know that we're still around. First of all, there's so much to talk about. It's like in the year and a half since we did the last video, well over a year and a half. I mean, the world has changed dramatically, and I wouldn't even know where to begin. But the war in Ukraine grinds on. And with no end in sight. But everyone agrees that eventually the Ukrainians are going to have to give something up. And it's terrible that Putin would get some sort of victory, but
It's not a lasting victory. It's a victory that Europe will pay for and the United States will pay for eventually, right?
yeah. But support for this war is declining, even though the Europeans have just put forth a new package of aid. It's declining in the U.S. But the bottom line is, I've always said this, and many agree, that the way this war ends is like an armistice, like the Korean War. So, the Korean War, and everyone's watched MASH, many episodes of MASH. The Korean War ended in an armistice in 1953. There's still a war. North Korea and South Korea are still at war, technically. The two Koreas are technically still at war. So, but it ended in an armistice. And it worked for South Korea. They're a booming, prosperous country, and North Korea is a joke. And it's run by a nut job.
A nut job with nuclear weapons.
A nut job with nuclear weapons, yeah. Who now says he doesn't want any sort of unification, and that they'll always be at war with South Korea. But, things change, and we'll see what happens. Ultimately, if the world survives, the two Koreas will merge and become one, just like the two Irelands will merge and become one. Northern Ireland is not yet the time. Northern Ireland, thank God, the troubles in Northern Ireland are gone, and it looks like things are there's a lot of political stability. But eventually, I think the two Irelands will join up as well. But not probably in my lifetime. But maybe, who knows? But Ukraine, the war will end with some sort of armistice.
And that's such a shame, isn't it?
It is a shame that Putin will be rewarded for his aggression, and the Russians have lost a lot. Oh, their economy is still doing pretty good, no question. Everyone admits it's amazing, but they have lost a lot in prestige. They're isolated. They lost. They say almost 300,000 Russians have died. I mean, that's incredible. And just because their economy is doing well now doesn't mean it's doing well now because they're putting lots of money into the weapons industry, and it's not sustainable growth. And of course, Russia has lots of oil, and they can sell it to countries like India and China, who aren't part of the sanctions. But in the long term, the Russian economy isn't going anywhere.
And India,
Russia has paid a real price on this.
Yeah.
isolation. Putin is considered a war criminal in many parts of the world.
Officially, too.
Officially. So, and Putin never talks about it, but I'm sure he's looking for a way out, for a step down. So we'll see what happens. This year will be interesting to see what happens. I think, but I do think the Ukrainians probably will have to make some concessions. But the benefit to Ukraine is they will probably be allowed into the EU and eventually NATO. They'll become a prosperous European country where Russia will stay in decline. So, but so Ukraine will have to make some concessions. Zelensky certainly doesn't want to do that now, but he'll probably be forced into making some concessions by the Europeans, the Americans. I think Putin is probably looking for a way out, and I don't see Ukraine getting Crimea back, and the eastern provinces, Donetsk and all that, will probably end up being part of Russia, and
they'll just have to move on from there.
We'll have to move on from there. It's not fair, but that's the way it is. Life, the world isn't a fair place. But Ukraine has a real chance to prosper. Once things are stabilized, they have a real chance to prosper. Access to the European Union, eventual access to NATO, and Russia will remain isolated for a long time. So, and the other big international crisis.
Oh, the other one, right?
The other one, yeah. The other one, the war in Gaza, the Hamas-Israel war. That is a very complicated mess. By the way, this is a great book. If you're ever looking for a good book on this, it's in paperback. You can get it anywhere, any good bookstore. The 100 Years War on Palestine by Rashid Khalidi. He's one of the great scholars. He teaches at Columbia University in New York.
Is he like a Timothy Snyder type, or
he holds the Edward Said chair there. Anyways, the bottom line is this thing's been going on for 75 years. I don't see it ending anytime soon. There's violence. Yeah, Hamas is a nutjob operation. They're a terrorist nutjob operation. They enjoy killing people. They're like Bond villains. Hamas reminds me of that scene in Moonraker with James Bond movie with Roger Moore, and the CIA operative asked Bond, played by Roger Moore, about Jaws, and they're hanging from a cable car in Rio. And you guys have seen the movie, a lot of you have seen the movie. And she says to him, "Do you know him?" And Bond says, "Not socially. His name is Jaws. He kills people." And that's Hamas. They just enjoy killing people. They're a nut job operation. They knew when they did this horrible thing on October, what was it, 7th, Clea?
8th, I think. 8th.
October 7th or whatever, that thousands of Palestinians would die because the Israelis would take retaliatory action. They didn't care. And their paymasters in Iran didn't care either. So they're a nut job operation. They're a total, and getting rid of them would please many people in the Arab world. Saying that, of course, this hatred comes out of the fact that Israel does not want to give the Palestinians any justice. They don't want to give them their own state. They don't want. The Palestinians are treated like dirt. In the West Bank, Palestinians have very little freedom of movement. There's so many Israeli checkpoints, and of course the settlements are continuing.
But Hamas treats Palestinians like dirt too.
Well, sure. Hamas is a nut job operation, and
who Palestinians have historically supported, right? Palestinians themselves have supported Hamas.
Sure, because they're seen as some sort of resistance. But they're just nihilistic. They're sort of like ISIS, in my opinion. and anyone who supports them is crazy. And Gaza is a prison camp, as everyone knows. Now it's largely destroyed. And if Hamas, I agree with Tom Friedman, if Hamas really wanted to do something in Gaza, they could have created at least some functioning entity. It wouldn't be Dubai, like Tom Friedman said could happen, but it could have been a functioning entity. They had control of the territory. They could have made it work. They had money from Qatar. They could have made it work. Could have made it actually a very interesting place. But they decided to make it into this Islamic nut job place. Anyways, but saying all that, again, Israel has not given.
That's probably Andrew Brooks.
Probably Andrew, yeah. Israel has not helped the matter, like I said, by making life for Palestinians in the West Bank horrible, the total blockade of Gaza, and of course Israel, as everyone knows, nurtured Hamas. Netanyahu nurtured Hamas, tolerated Hamas, because they saw it as a counterweight to the Palestinian Authority. So it's a mess. It's a bloody mess. Do I see any improvement? Do I see this as a sea change? No.
But aren't Egyptians just as much to blame for Hamas as the Israelis? Because Hamas came out of the Muslim Brotherhood, and which was a movement in Egypt, right?
Well, Egypt might be somewhat culpable, but the Muslim Brotherhood was actually Morsi became president of Egypt. He was not a bad guy. He came out of the Muslim Brotherhood, but they got rid of him. No, the Muslim Brotherhood wasn't that bad. They were the mainstream of the Muslim Brotherhood wasn't nut jobby like Hamas. Anyways, this is supposed to be a very short video because we haven't done one in a while, so I'm just going to sum up. The Palestinians deserve some justice. They do deserve a state of their own. The violence will continue for a long time unless they get some justice or a state of their own, or at least make, as Hillary Clinton once said, she told Netanyahu, she said, look, if you're not going to give the Palestinians a state, at least make life more livable in the West Bank for them. Get rid of all these blockades and checkpoints, and let Palestinians be able to travel between different cities and towns in the West Bank. Obviously, he disagreed, and the West Bank is a kind of an Orwellian sort of Bantustan. So, this is what sadly, I don't see anything good coming for the Palestinians out of all this horrible mess. The violence will simmer down. There'll be a ceasefire eventually. Hamas certainly has been degraded somewhat. But
not
the world media will go. The world media will focus on something else, and the violence, this intermittent violence, will continue. As they said, what's that famous line, Cleve? The dogs,
the caravan will move on.
Right, the dogs bark, the drums roll, and the caravan moves on. So, nothing. I don't see anything good happening out of this. There will be Israel continue to do what it does, subjugate the Palestinians. The violence will subside for a while, but then it will erupt again, and the Palestinians won't get any justice. And
can I ask you a personal question?
And yes,
one personal question. Like, how are you connected to this Israeli-Hamas war? How you personally are connected? Like, what's your history with it?
Well, I'm not connected to. I used to do a lot of work on Palestinian rights, with NECF, the Near East Cultural Foundation, but I haven't in a while. And eventually you get pretty cynical of the whole stuff. I mean, I've sort of. I'm so cynical about what goes on in the Middle East. Like, I do think it is one big Tower of Babylon, you know, just one sort of cauldron of hatred and intolerance and stuff that goes back thousands of years. And
some nasty shit goes on.
nasty stuff, and I can see why people are so cynical about what goes on in the Middle East. You know, there's that great proverb or joke about the scorpion that wants to cross the river and asks the fish to take him across. And the fish says, "No, I'm not taking it across. You'll sting me." And the scorpion says, "Why would I do that? We'll both die." So the fish says, "Okay, that makes sense." So the fish takes the scorpion on his back, and then halfway across the river, the scorpion stings the fish. And the dying fish says to the scorpion, "Why did you do that?" The scorpion says, "Because it's the Middle East."
Oh my
I
God.
thought, yeah, that sums it up. That sums it up totally.
That's, oh my God.
Yeah, that sums it up totally. The hatred and the religious intolerance and the intolerance in general, and it applies to the Israelis, applies to the Arabs. It's just like I said, one Tower of Babylon. It's a cauldron of thousands of years of hatred and intolerance, and I don't see it ending anytime soon. And hey, as you said, right? Times change. Things happen. Maybe good things will happen. Maybe out of all this, Palestinians will get some justice, but I doubt it. Things will simmer down. The subjugation of the Palestinians will go on. Israel will move on. And the Arab world doesn't give a damn, because the Arab world is run by dictators and thugs and autocrats, and they say they support the Palestinians, but they don't really care. So,
but Murder bin Salman is trying to make some progress, right?
Murder bin Salman is trying to do something, but ultimately he wants to have good relations with Israel because they want the military technology, they want the surveillance stuff that Israel provides, they want, But we'll see what happens. I mean, he can only do so much too. I mean, the Saudis it's a pretty repressive place, but there is a population he has to worry about. But ultimately, money talks, and the rest is, like I said, I think the Palestinians will be living in Bantustans for a long time, and the dogs bark, the drums roll, and the caravan moves on, and the international media will move on, and this violence will continue. And yes, I've been to Israel. I've I've seen it. And I understand what the Jewish people have been through. I've been to Auschwitz. I've been to Israel. So I do get it, but I often said that I always thought that the Jewish state should have been created in Central Europe, where all the atrocities took place. That would have been Prague would have been a perfect capital, or Vienna. But I don't know why it was created in Palestine.
Semitic peoples, I guess.
And I do agree that it is sort of a colonial.
Because the British.
It is settler colonialism. I do agree with that. But Israel's a reality. Israel is a reality, and it's not going away. And there is definitely a certain hypocrisy the way some places judge Israel and don't judge other parts of the world. Genocide is happening in the eastern Congo. 6 millions of people have died. Genocide is happening in Yemen. The Chinese are committing genocide with the Uyghurs in China. I mean, there's always going after Israel is hypocritical.
Yeah,
the world's a nasty place.
Well, there's more than 20 Muslim majority countries in the world, more than 20 by state definition Muslim countries in the world, but everybody goes after Israel. I don't get why that happens.
There's a certain hypocrisy there, no question.
Yeah.
I think with Israel, it's because they're backed by the United States.
Yeah.
They tend to get away with stuff, and I think a lot of people get annoyed at that, and nothing changes. And so, and the billions of dollars that the U.S. gives Israel, more than any other country, is without question they just get it. And Biden has been supporting Israel during this onslaught in Gaza, and so. Anyways, I'm rambling. This was just, we haven't done a video in a long time, and I didn't want to ramble because I have no solutions to these problems. And I like a lot of people, let's get cynical. So,
Well,
I wish, like, I do think that if the Israelis gave the Palestinians some justice, and I wish there could be a reconstituted Palestinian Authority that could take over in Gaza and then also in the West Bank, and then eventually, if the Israelis could loosen controls, I think lessen the hate. That's what Hillary Clinton used to say, lessen the hate. I think things would happen, but I don't see it. Even if Netanyahu moves on, which he will, obviously, eventually. Anyways, I've rambled. I don't have any solutions to all these problems. But this is a good book by Rashid Khalidi, 100 Years War on Palestine. He's a very smart guy. He doesn't get caught up in all sorts of rhetoric. He's a teacher. He's a professor at Columbia, and it's probably one of the best books written on this subject. Anyways, we'll do more videos. This is just we might even put this to air because I've rambled on way too long. By the way, since I love the moon. This is a great book on the moon by Rebecca Boyle. It just came out. And everyone knows on my Facebook page how much I love the moon. This is about the moon and its relationship with Earth and how basically humans were created because of the moon. I'm not going to get into it. It's called Our Moon by Rebecca Boyle. It just came out. Anyways, that's it. And this is my new place here at 99 Foxbar.
It looks beautiful.
So that's Late Night from Willowdale. First time since summer of 2022.
Okay.